The suburbs looked perfect. White picket fences, manicured lawns. The kind of neighborhood where nothing bad happens. Marcus Richardson knew his place. He bought it 12 years ago. A modest 3-bedroom house. The American dream. He'd worked for it, earned it, paid for it. 12 years of mortgage payments. 12 years of maintenance. 12 years of believing he belonged. That belief would shatter on a Sunday morning. Marcus was washing his car. The same car he'd owned for 7 years. Black sedan. Well-maintained. He wore casual clothes. A t-shirt. Shorts. Nothing suspicious. Nothing that threatened anyone. Just a man on a Sunday doing what millions of Americans do without incident. His neighbors waved. He waved back. The morning was perfect. Sunny. Peaceful. The kind of morning that made you grateful. Grateful for your home. Grateful for your community. Grateful for your place. That gratitude lasted exactly 12 minutes. Jennifer Walsh appeared like a storm. She moved fast. Her face was tight, angry, suspicious, mixed together into something that looked righteous. She wore expensive athletic wear, designer sunglasses, the kind of accessories that signaled money, status, the confidence of someone always believed. "Excuse me." Her voice cut through the quiet. "Excuse me." Marcus stopped washing. He turned, confused. In 12 years on this street, he'd never had a single confrontation. He knew his neighbors by name. He attended HOA meetings. He paid his dues. He was a good neighbor. He felt something shift inside him. Not panic. Not yet, but the beginning of it. The recognition of danger. He'd heard the statistics. He knew the reality. He understood what could happen next in ways white Americans rarely have to understand. "What are you doing here?" Jennifer demanded. Her arms were crossed. Her sunglasses stayed on. She wasn't looking for explanation. She was looking for a confirmation of something she'd already decided. "I live here, ma'am," Marcus said carefully. He kept his voice calm. Respectful. He showed his keys. A simple gesture. Proof. "This is my house." Jennifer shook her head. The gesture wasn't confused. It wasn't uncertain. It was dismissive. Final. She'd made up her mind. Nothing as minor as facts would change it. "No, you don't," she said flatly. "I know every resident on this street. I'm the HOA president, and you're not one of them." The implication hung in the air. You don't belong here. You're suspicious. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. He understood what was about to happen. He'd seen it happen to friends. He'd read about it happening to strangers. He knew this playbook. "I have my identification," he said. He reached for his wallet slowly. The kind of slowness that signals no threat, that demonstrates compliance, that tries to prove through body language and tone that he was safe, that he wasn't a danger, that he deserved to exist in his own driveway. He pulled out his driver's license, his mortgage documents, physical proof of ownership, evidence of his right to be there. But Jennifer wasn't interested in evidence. She was interested in certainty, and her certainty was absolute. A black man washing a car in the suburbs was suspicious. That was the entire story for her. "I've lived here since 2012, Marcus said. Desperation was creeping into his voice. 12 years. In this same house. Jennifer pulled out her phone. She didn't negotiate. She didn't investigate. She didn't ask questions. She dialed 3 digits. That was all it took. 3 digits that would change everything. 911, she said when the dispatcher answered. "I want to report a suspicious person." The dispatcher's voice came through professional. "What is the nature of the emergency?" "I'm reporting a suspicious person in my neighborhood," Jennifer said. Her voice carried authority. The authority of someone always believed. He's on my street, claiming he lives here, but I've never seen him before. Can you describe him? The dispatcher asked, and here the machine clicked into gear. An assumption based on race became an official report. Skin color became probable cause. He's black, Jennifer said. The words hung like they meant something fundamental, like that single fact justified everything coming next. He's got an expensive car. He says he lives here, but I've never seen him. I'm very concerned about the neighborhood. Please send someone. The dispatcher took the information, made the report, dispatched the units. Within minutes, the peaceful Sunday morning will become something else entirely. A police response to a threat that didn't exist. An investigation into a crime that hadn't happened. A manifestation of a system built brick by brick over centuries. Marcus stood in his driveway. He heard sirens in the distance, growing closer. 7 minutes from Jennifer's call to police arrival. 7 minutes of standing there, knowing what was coming. 7 minutes of dread. His family was inside. His children were inside. He thought about every story he'd ever heard about black men and police encounters. He thought about statistics, about probabilities, about the mathematics of survival in America. The sirens grew louder. They always sounded the same. Urgent, threatening, designed to inspire fear and compliance. 2 police cars pulled up. Officers emerged with the formal bearing of people trained to assess threats. Marcus watched them taking in the scene. The man, the car, the street, the house. Cataloging data, building a profile, preparing to respond. Officer number 1 approached. Her name was Chen, 18 years on the force. She'd seen patterns that most people never noticed. She'd learned to read situations in ways that transcended official training. But that knowledge would sit in the background now. The protocol would play out first. We receive a report, Officer Chen said. Her tone was professional but cautious. Her hand stayed near her belt. This was procedure. This was training. This was how police approached unknown situations. Can you tell me what's going on? Marcus took a breath. He'd been preparing for this moment since the siren started. He would be cooperative, respectful, non-threatening. He would perform safety for people who held power over his life. I live here, officer, Marcus said. His voice was steady. I'm not doing anything wrong. I was just washing my car. Officer Chen nodded. This was reasonable. This made sense. But she still needed to verify. That was her job. To verify, to ensure the report was accurate or inaccurate, to do the work of investigation. I'm going to need identification, she said. Driver's license, insurance, proof of residency if you have it. Marcus moved slowly. He reached for his wallet. He pulled out his documents. He handed them over with careful politeness. Someone who understands that sudden movements get misinterpreted. That confidence gets read as aggression. That not performing absolute deference could be dangerous. I also have my mortgage documents, he said, in the house. I can get them. From the edge of the driveway, Jennifer watched. She seemed certain, vindicated, like she'd known all along something was wrong. Now police confirmed her intuition. He's lying, she called out. I've never seen him here. You need to investigate this. Officer Chen held up a hand. Ma'am, let me handle this, please. She took Marcus's documents and walked back to her patrol car. The door closed. The radio crackled. Marcus stood on his driveway, visible but not visible, present but not counted, in his own space but not safe in it. Inside the patrol car, Officer Chen ran Marcus's information through the database. She typed his address into the system. She waited for the results. The database didn't lie. The database was precise. The database confirmed what Marcus had been saying. He owned the property. He'd owned it since 2012. His mortgage was current. Everything checked out. Everything aligned. Officer Chen looked at the information on her screen. She recognized the address. She patrolled this neighborhood for years. She knew the community. She knew the patterns. And then she realized something. She recognized the address for another reason. This wasn't just a random report. This was part of a pattern. She pulled up Jennifer Walsh's history. Her 911 calls. Her reports. 5 reports in 18 months. All involving people of color. All unfounded. All following the exact same pattern. Someone was called suspicious. Someone was reported for existing. Someone was investigated for living in their own neighborhood. In every single case, the report was false. Officer Chen sat in her car. She processed this. She understood what she was looking at. She saw the system working exactly as designed. Profiling dressed up as concern. Discrimination dressed up as neighborhood watch. Systemic racism dressed up as safety. She closed her eyes. Then she removed her sunglasses. It was a small gesture, but it was deliberate. She was about to step out of the car not as an enforcer of the system, but as someone who would confront it. Officer Chen walked back toward Marcus and Jennifer. Her bearing was different now. Her shoulders were squared. Her expression had shifted from neutral professionalism to something direct, something honest. "Do you know who I am?" she asked Jennifer. The question wasn't rhetorical. It was pointed. Jennifer looked confused. "You're a police officer?" "I'm Lieutenant Sarah Chen," Officer Chen said. Those 5 words carried weight. "I patrol this neighborhood every day. I know Mr. Richardson. I know his family. I know his mortgage is current." She paused. She let it sink in. She was establishing credibility. She was saying, "I'm not an outside observer. I'm not an automaton following a script. I actually know this community. And I know you," Officer Chen continued. She turned her full attention to Jennifer. "I know your call history. I know you've called 911 5 times in 18 months. I know every single one involved a person of color, and I know none of those calls resulted in any actual crime." Jennifer's face shifted. The certainty drained from it. She looked suddenly small. "Caught. That's not concern, Ms. Walsh," Officer Chen said. "That's discrimination. That's a pattern. That's reportable." "I was just—" Jennifer started. "You were profiling," Officer Chen interrupted. "And that has consequences." Officer Chen turned to Marcus. She looked him in the eye. She saw a man who had done nothing wrong. A man who owned his house. A man being investigated for the crime of existing while black. "Mr. Richardson, you did nothing wrong," she said. Those words were a gift. Validation. Justice. "I apologize for this encounter. For the inconvenience. For the indignity." She extended her hand. Marcus shook it. In that handshake was something rare. An acknowledgement of wrong. A use of power for protection instead of oppression. An officer who saw the system and decided to work against it. After the police left, after Jennifer retreated in humiliation, after the street returned to its surface peace, Marcus sat on his porch. He had his house. He had his property. He'd been vindicated by the system. But something had broken inside him. Or maybe it had always been broken. This incident just made the fracture visible. He shouldn't need police protection in his own driveway, not at his own house, not just to exist on his own property. And yet he did. He had needed Officer Chen to validate his ownership. He had needed an authority figure to confirm his right to be there. He had needed a woman in uniform to make him safe in his own front yard. What did that say about the system? What did that say about America? Marcus understood that his vindication changed nothing if the system remained. The next black person on this street would probably face the same thing. And the next one, and the next one, unless something changed. Unless people recognized the pattern. Unless people demanded accountability. Officer Chen's choice to hold Jennifer accountable was meaningful. It was important. It was integrity in a system that often rewarded the opposite. But it also revealed the fundamental problem. Individual officers couldn't fix systemic racism. The system didn't change just because one officer made a different choice. The system remained in place. The next officer might not be an Officer Chen. They might follow the script. They might believe the caller. They might investigate the black homeowner for existing. Real systemic change required more than individual integrity. It required policy changes. It required training programs. It required accountability mechanisms. It required complete reimagining of how police responded to calls that were essential reports of people existing in ways that made others uncomfortable. Between 2010 and 2020, false 911 reports targeting people of color increased by 42%. This wasn't steady. This was acceleration. A trend getting worse, not better. Research showed that 70% of false 911 calls targeted people of color. That black households received noise complaints at nearly 3 times the rate of white households. That HOAs use complaint systems as tools of enforcement that work differently depending on who was being enforced against. These weren't individual choices. These weren't random variations. These were patterns. Systemic patterns. Patterns that emerge from the system's own logic. Patterns that require the system to work this way. In a just system, Marcus Richardson could wash his car without being questioned. In a just system, Jennifer Walsh would face real consequences for filing a false report. In a just system, police would be trained to recognize discriminatory profiling. In a just system, HOAs would be reformed or abolished. In a just system, Officer Chen's choice wouldn't be exceptional. It would be normal. The incident on Maple Street mattered because it exposed the machinery. It made visible what usually remained invisible. It showed how systemic racism functioned. How an assumption based on race became a 911 call. How a 911 call became police intervention. How police intervention became a threat to someone's safety and freedom. But it mattered because of what Officer Chen did. It showed the machinery could be interrupted, that individual choices mattered, that people with authority could use it for justice instead of oppression. And it mattered because Marcus Richardson's voice, because he spoke about his experience, because he told his story, because he didn't accept the outcome as final, because he understood his vindication didn't mean the system had changed. It meant the system was still broken, and he'd been lucky enough to encounter someone who decided to interrupt it. People needed to hear these stories. They needed to understand the patterns. They needed to recognize their role in these systems. They needed to take responsibility. They needed to demand change. They needed to work for systemic transformation, not for individual mercy, but for structural justice. Because systemic change didn't happen overnight. It happened when thousands of people decided they couldn't accept the system as it was. It happened when people with authority used it differently. It happened when victims spoke out and demanded accountability. It happened when communities organized and supported each other. It happened when the cost of maintaining the system became higher than the cost of changing it. The incident on Maple Street was one moment in this larger movement, one story among thousands, one example of how the system worked and how it could be interrupted, one reminder that change was possible, but only if people were brave enough to demand it.